Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over how to maximize the frame rate in Unreal Engine, or how many frames your PC can handle, so that we can have a better experience in the Unreal Engine and when we're playing the game. So there's a common problem with Unreal Engine that like the default, like when you make a default game or when you make a default project that has nothing in it, the game or the engine just maximizes or caps the FPS at 60. Like right now, if I show you the FPS, it caps at 60. It doesn't go above that. And obviously, we want a higher frame rate so that we can have a better experience when we're playing our game or when we're in the scene. So, we're going to be making some blueprints so that we can set certain frame rate limits, like for example, 30, 60, 144, and then the max FPS that your computer can handle. So, there are probably a lot of tutorials that go over this kind of stuff. That go over like the simple things, or like all the like messing around with like certain settings to like lowering graphic settings and the project settings or whatever, like disabling lumen. Like I'll go over that real quick or later. But a lot of the tutorials don't go over what I'm going to be doing today mainly, which is messing around with some blueprints. So we'll be going over that so that we can maximize our frame rate limits. So this is just a default Unreal Engine project, and I'm just going to be making a new character first. So go to our content drawer, go to content, and we're going to say make a new folder and call it blueprints. And we're also going to make a new folder called levels. So we're going to make a new level first. I'm not going to use this default level. We're going to go to File, New Level, Basic, Create, save that in our new levels folder. Make sure you select it. And I'm just going to name this FPS level. You can name it whatever you want. Save it, and now that saves it in our level folder. So we're going to make a new blueprint, which is going to be our character blueprint, because we want to possess that player so that we can see the limit that that character, like when we're possessing him, we want to see how much that character can get, because you're going to be possessing your player in your game. Obviously, you probably already have created your player, but I'll just do it real quick. So blueprint class, character if it's a 3D game, paper character if it's a 2D game. I'm just gonna say a regular 3D character. I'm gonna name it player char underscore BP, char for character, BP for blueprint. So I'm gonna open it up, and first we're gonna need to add our keybinds so that we can pause the game and then press the buttons that are the certain frame rate limits, like 30, 60, or 90, or etc. So go to edit, project settings, go to engine, and then input, add a new action mapping, and we're just going to call it pause game. And we're going to make that key binding escape and P. Now we're going to have to be using the P key in Unreal Engine because we can't use the escape key, which is usual in most games. Because when we press escape, when we press play, that just ends the scene view. But when you already package your game, then you can press escape. It won't actually close the game like the Unreal Engine editor. So now that we made our keybind, we need to actually go into our character blueprint. We don't need to mess around with anything in the viewport. We're just going to go straight to the event graph. We're going to delete all these. We don't need them. And we're going to just be calling our pause game. Make sure it's an action mapping. Input action. And then off of press, we're going to say create widget. I cannot type today. Create widget. What the flip flop? Yeah. Okay. And then off of value, we're going to say add to the viewport because we actually want to make our player see it. And now it's going to give us an error because we haven't selected our class. So we want to actually make a pause menu, or which is a widget. So we're going to go to blueprints and make a new widgets folder, or you can just call it UI, I guess. You're going to go scroll down all the way to under user interface and then widget blueprint. Click on user widget, and we're just going to name this pause menu underscore W for widget. Double click on it. And we're going to be adding a canvas panel. And then just, you don't really have to do this, but it's good to know. I'll just add a blur to have this thing where you can just blur your background, which makes it look like it's more of a pause screen, I guess, because a lot of games have this. Make sure it's set 1920 by 1080. That is the pretty much like the default screen size or resolution. Center it. Make sure the anchor is in the center of the screen so that the blur does not move around. And then we're just going to set the blur strength to like somewhere around 7. I found that that was a good amount. And then we're just going to get a text, not text. Add that in. Make sure you add that into the canvas panel so that we can move it around. I'm just going to up the size of this, and I'm going to rename this to paused. And we're going to make the font a bit bigger. I'm going to center it to the screen. Just like that. And then we're going to get a button. Make sure you add it to the canvas panel again. Gonna make that bigger, and we're just gonna get a text again, and that text is just gonna say options. We'll make this black. You don't have to get too crazy with this because you guys probably already have a pause screen, but whatever. So we're making a new button so that when we press on it, it goes to our options menu. So I'm gonna rename this button to button options so that we can, call it later and we can know what that button is. Make sure it is a variable. And then you go down to on clicked once it is a variable. Make sure you keep event construct. So, and then off this, we're going to say create widgets. And then add to viewport, same as last time. And then we're going to make another user interface. We can really just take this and duplicate it, and we're going to call it options menu underscore W. And we're going to say this is the options menu. Save it. And then we actually want to show our cursor once we're in this widget so that we can actually press the options button, because it's not going to show our cursor unless we actually add the blueprints to show our cursor. So off of event construct, as soon as the widget opens, we're going to say set show mouse cursor. Uncheck the context sensitive. And then we actually do want to show our mouse cursor, so we're going to check it. And then off target, we want our player controller. Make sure you check this again so you get the right player controller. And then I'm just going to move this up and press C to comment it. And I'll just say show mouse cursor. And then off of, now we're done with this, the button. So we can just say show options menu, or you can just say options menu button, whatever you want to call it, the comment. We should be done in a pause menu now. So if we open up our, make sure we reference our pause menu in our player character. So as soon as we pause the game or press P, we want to show our pause menu widget. There we go. Go back to our options menu, and we're just going to rename this to options. We're going to get rid of this background blur, and we're just going to add in a image to the canvas panel. Make sure it is 1920 by 1080. Center it to the screen. Make sure this is the first thing showing so that we can see our button and our image. We're gonna just make this image black under color and opacity so that we can see our text. And make sure you want it, this needs to be clipped to the bounds so that this does not go outside of the resolution of the screen. Clip to bounds. We'll fix that error in a second. So this options text is just going to be called, we're going to rename it to max FPS. And then we're going to rename this button to btn underscore max FPS. Make sure it's still a variable, and then you go to on clicked, you are going to delete this. And then here's where we actually add all the blueprints to maximize our FPS. So again, off of event construct, we're just going to say set show mouse cursor. We do want to show it, so we're going to check it. Then get the player. I'll like give us player controller. Make sure you press C to comment it. And then off of our button, we're just going to say get game user settings. And then off of this, we're going to say set frame rate limit. This is going to be our max FPS button, so we're just make the new limit to 1000. You can also promote this to a variable, which is going to be a float. And we'll just rename this. This is just for an example. I'm not going to use this. We'll just say, call it max FPS. Press enter. And make sure you compile and save it so that you can give it a number of 1000. The target needs to be the return values because it needs to know what the target is, which is the user settings of the game. I'm not going to use this variable, but that's just so that you know that you can use it. The less variables you have, usually, the better, the more cleaner it is. And then off of the execution, we are going to say apply settings, because we actually want the game to apply this new frame rate. Make sure the target is the return value, and we can double click on this to make a reroute node or pen. And then off of this, we're going to make a new function. We just add it here, and we'll just say max F, or just say frame rate. Frame rate limits. And then off of this, actually, all we need to do is add 4 inputs. One of them being the 30 FPS. You can make this whatever. The 60 FPS, the 144 FPS, and the max FPS. Make sure that they are all booleans. Compile, save. You can close out of this function, and we're just going to be drag and dropping that into the execution. Since this is the max FPS of 1000, that's overkill. We'll just set it to max FPS. Then what we could do is we're going to be adding more buttons. We're going to be adding 3 more buttons. One that's the 60 FPS button, the 30 FPS button, and the 144 FPS button. So we'll just simply click on this, shift, click on this, Control C, click on the canvas panel, Control V, Control V, Control V to make 3 more buttons. It doesn't have to look crazy good. I don't really care about what it looks right now. We just need to center this, make sure this is centered to the button, the anchor. Then we're going to be renaming these to like 144 FPS, 60 FPS, and then 30 FPS. And make sure you rename the button to, you don't have to do this, but it just makes it look more clear once you're actually in the graph. Just do this real quick. And then 30 FPS. Great. Make sure that they are all variables, all these buttons, not the text. So off of all of these, we're going to say, click on all these, and then click on clicked. Then we'll just simply copy and paste this 3 more times. And we'll just be changing a little bit of the settings. So the 144 FPS is obviously 144 FPS. Make sure that the new limit is set to 144. And then 60 FPS will be 60 frames. Make sure it is the 60 FPS button. And then, of course, the 30 FPS, which I really hope you don't ever run that. But it is for lower end PCs, obviously. Then we'll just simply comment this once we have all these in. We'll just be comment FPS limit, whatever you want to call it. That should be good. Okay, we can close out of the options menu. I think we have everything we need. Oh no, we need to add a back button so that we can exit out of the options menu back to the pause menu, and then we can press resume so that we can resume the game. So first, we need to add a back button. So we're just gonna copy that again and add it to the canvas panel. I'm just gonna downsize this button. Click on the text, name it back. Click on the button, name it button back. And then we'll put this in the far corner, wherever you want to put it. Center it. And then on clicked, we're just gonna simply just say remove from parent, which removes the widget. That's it. We don't need a target because the target is self. You can just close out of that. Go back to our pause menu because we also need a resume button. And we'll just say resume. Rename this button. Resume, center it. And then that should be actually now resume. Yeah, we need to add the little blueprints for this. So on clicked. We're not going to say remove from parent. We're just actually, yeah, we will. We're going to say first get or set, is it set game paused? Yeah, set game paused. And then we're going to say keep it unchecked because we are unpausing the game. And then we're going to say remove from parent. And of course, when we press P, we actually do want to pause the game. So we're going to, once we press P, we're going to move this over a little bit. And we're going to say set game paused. And then we're going to check it because the game actually is paused. I think we can close out of the player now. I think we're done with that. And we're just going to say, comment this and say, resume button. That should be it. Now, we need to add in our character and possess it. So once we add him in, we're just going to simply scroll all the way down. And then until we, or you can say, type in auto possess player, click on disable and make sure it's player 0 so that that is the first player being possessed in the game. Make sure you display the FPS so we can see what it is. So right now you can see that it is capping at 60. When you press play, it's capped at 30. So when we press P, we go to options, we press 30. As you can see, it caps at 30. We press 60, it caps at 60. 144, it caps at 80. It doesn't actually go to 144, it's trying its best. You press max, it should max out your FPS. And you just go to back and resume, and it's capping at around 80. So if you want to increase this even more, what you can do, so we need to close out of this game, or escape out of the game, go to edit, product settings, and we're just going to be downgrading some of the quality so that we can improve the FPS. So we're going to go to all settings and project settings, and then search up lumen. And off of the global illumination and reflections, they're both set to lumen. We're just going to say set to none. Usually you don't really need to use lumen a lot of the times, so that's just going to maximize your FPS a lot more. As you can see, that already maximized it or improved it by 30%, 40. Go back to product settings. We can even add even more, or yeah, get more frames. And we're just going to search up shadow. And then off of shadow map method, we're just going to say shadow maps. Let's just downgrade some of the shadows. It's not super noticeable, but yeah, it still displays shadows. And then we're just, that improves it by 10 or 20%. go to search again, and then we're just going to say anti-aliasing. Aliasing. And then off of mobile and default settings, we're just going to set both of them to MSAA. This should improve it a whole lot. If you want even more, you can set it to none. It's going to make your game look a little more grainy, but it just improves it a lot. Like right there, that improved it a lot. It's capping at 210 FPS. Now, this gives a lot of FPS when you press it. It keeps it at 200. You can even add more FPS by downgrading the post-processing volume and a bunch of other crap. So how to do that, you go to settings, and then world settings, where the heck that is, engine scalability settings, my bad. And you can just set the quality down to low, medium, high. It was set to epic, or you can just make it custom. I'm gonna set it to low, and you can see that it improves it by another 10 to 20 frames. Just set it to cinematic. It downgrades by 30, but I mean 170 frames per second is pretty good. So there you have it. That's how to improve your FPS and set current frames in your game to have a better experience in the game. There you go. And as you see, when you press max, it sets it to 200, 144, caps at 144, 60, 30. Just use max FPS, honestly. But there you go. Thanks for watching.